Beginning of Parshas Vayetzei, the famous story of Yaakov Avinu went to sleep. He took the rocks, he put them around his head. The pasuk says when he woke up, he took the rock, the one rock. We know the famous Rashi tells us there were many rocks and they turned to one rock. A good friend, Rav Pinchas Shmurak from Lakewood, tells me when he first came to yeshiva, he came to here, to Oli Yaakov, to learn in Moscow, he came to yeshiva. His first introduction to Judaism, he came into the yeshiva and somebody was giving a shiur and he sat down and they said there were rocks and the rocks started to fight and the rocks became one, and he said, what are these people drinking? What are they smoking here? What's going on? What is this? What is the story about the rocks fighting with each other? Many rocks became one rock. Really a very strange story. Maral gives us a very beautiful insight into this story, what's going on. The rocks became one rock. Maral says, by introducing us with a rule which the Maral speaks about in different places in his Svarim, but here on this Rashi, he says it here about Yaakov Avinu. Kedusha is indivisible. We say, Ata Kodesh, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Kodesh, He's Kodesh, He's holy. Holiness is indivisible, therefore HaKadosh Baruch Hu is also Achad, Yochid. Until there was a Bria, there was no such thing as divisibility. There was no such thing as two. On the second day of creation, we're told, that's when the first division happened between the waters, between the higher waters and the lower waters. There was crying, there was division. That's only in a Bria, which is Kaviyachol, outside of what HaKadosh Baruch Hu is in himself. He himself, HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself, is individual. There's no such thing as two HaKadosh Baruch Hu, two sides of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's one, Ato Echad. Just like He's Kadosh, therefore He's Echad. The more Kadosh we are, the more Kedusha there is, the more unity there is, the more togetherness there is. In the first Beis HaMikdash, everybody was in Eretz Yisrael, the entire Jewish nation was in one land, in the Beis HaMikdash, serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu with Kedusha. Second Beis HaMikdash left, there was no Arna Kodesh already. There was a little bit of a less of a Kedusha. Many of the Yidden didn't come back, only a small percentage of the Yidden came back. There was Kedusha, but it was less. Now in Golus, with the lack of Kedusha, with the lack of open Kedusha of Beis HaMikdash, we're spread over the entire world. If we want to come together, the way we become together is by increasing our Kedusha. The more Kedusha we have, the more unity we have, the more Achdus we have, the more Yochid we have. The less Kedusha, the less. Yaakov Avinu, says the Maral, epitomized Kedusha. He was from Ali Avos, the one that's called by Chazal the Kodesh. And the head of Yaakov Avinu that was immersed in learning Torah for 14 years in Yeshiva Shem Ve'ever was the only thing that mattered to Yaakov Avinu was the Yeshua Olam, was to learn more and more and more and more Torah. His entire being became Kodesh, and Kal V'chein, his head became Kodesh. His head was infused with the Kedushas HaTorah. When he laid down on the many stones, those many stones could not stay divisible. They could not stay many. It could not be. It had to become one. This is the lesson of the stones. Say, Allah Yanich